Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt watched? Not in a frightening way, but in the way you might sense the gaze of someone who has known you your entire life. Someone patient. Someone who has been there long before you arrived and will remain long after you're gone. Tonight, let yourself imagine something extraordinary. Something that ancient minds believed without question and that modern hearts still whisper about in moments of wonder. Imagine that everything that has ever happened in human history, every war, every peace, every birth of an idea that changed the world, was not random at all. Imagine that the universe itself has been gently steering us all along, not with force, not with commands written in thunder, but with the slow, invisible influence of celestial rhythms, the pull of distant planets, the sweep of solar winds, the ancient clockwork of stars moving through patterns that repeat across millennia. This is not a story about fate carved in stone. It is a story about connection, about the possibility that we are not separate from the cosmos, but woven into it so completely that the boundary between human choice and cosmic influence dissolves like mist at dawn. The ancient world believed this deeply. They looked up and saw not merely lights in the darkness, but the handwriting of gods. They tracked the movements of Mars and Venus with the same careful attention we now give to stock markets and weather forecasts. Because to them, the sky was not distant. It was immediate, personal, alive with meaning, and perhaps they were not entirely wrong. Modern science tells us we are made of stardust, that the iron in our blood and the calcium in our bones were forged in the hearts of dying stars billions of years ago. We are, quite literally, pieces of the universe that have become conscious enough to look back at itself. Yes, oh, what if that connection runs deeper still? What if the gravitational dance of planets creates subtle tides not just in oceans, but in human emotion? What if solar flares send invisible ripples that somehow touch the collective mind, stirring revolutions and revelations in their wake? These are old questions, dressed in new language. Questions that have haunted humanity since the first person looked up and wondered, are we alone in making our choices? Or is something larger, something magnificent, working through us? Tonight, we will walk through history not as a chain of isolated events, but as a story written in two languages at once, one spoken by humans, one whispered by stars. That we will visit moments when the sky opened and history pivoted, when comets blazed and empires trembled, when celestial alignments coincided so perfectly with human turning points that coincidence begins to feel like conversation. This is not about proving or disproving. It is about wondering, about letting yourself drift into that ancient, intimate relationship between earth and sky that our ancestors knew so well. So settle in. Let your breathing slow. Feel the weight of your body held by the same gravity that holds planets in their orbits. And let us begin where all things begin, in darkness, lit only by distant fires. With the first humans who looked up and tried to read the mystery written there. Picture a desert night 5,000 years ago. The air is cool and impossibly clear. No city lights pollute the darkness. The Milky Way sprawls overhead like a river of silver, so bright it casts faint shadows on the sand. And there, beneath this overwhelming display, a figure sits, a priest, a scribe, an astronomer before that word existed, meticulously marking the position of Venus against the fixed stars. This was not idle curiosity. This was survival. This was power. This was the first science in ancient Mesopotamia. Between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, civilization was learning to read the sky. The Babylonians tracked the planets with stunning precision, recording their movements on clay tablets that have survived millennia. They noticed that Venus appeared as both morning star and evening star, disappearing and returning in regular cycles. They charted Mars's strange retrograde motion when it seemed to reverse course across the heavens. They predicted lunar eclipses years in advance, but they were not doing astronomy as we understand it. They were doing something far more intimate. They were listening to the gods speak. Each planet was a deity. Jupiter was Marduk, the king of gods. Venus was Ishtar, goddess of love and war. When these celestial bodies moved into particular configurations, it was believed they were conversing, making decisions that would ripple down to Earth. A conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn might herald the birth of a great king. A lunar eclipse could signal the death of a ruler. a belief so powerful that kings would sometimes place substitute rulers on the throne during eclipses, then execute them afterward to fulfill the prophecy and spare themselves. This was not superstition to them. This was practical wisdom, accumulated over generations of careful observation. Travel west to Egypt, and the sky takes on a different sacred geometry. The pyramids align with impossible precision to the cardinal directions. The shafts inside the Great Pyramid point toward specific stars: Sirius, Orion's belt, stars that represented the gods Isis and Osiris. The entire religious calendar revolved around the heliacal rising of Sirius, which announced the annual flooding of the Nile. When that star appeared at dawn just before sunrise, the priests knew the life-giving waters would soon arrive. The sky was a clock, yes, but it was also a map of divine intention. Across the ocean, cultures entirely isolated from Mesopotamia and Egypt developed their own celestial languages. The Maya built elaborate observatories and tracked Venus with such accuracy that their calculations rival modern measurements. They believed Venus in its morning star phase was a time of war, and indeed, they often scheduled military campaigns to coincide with its appearances. The planet's cycle became synchronized with human violence, as if the two were dancing together. In China, imperial astronomers held positions of immense responsibility. They were tasked with maintaining the mandate of heaven, the cosmic order that legitimized the emperor's rule. An unexpected comet, an unusual planetary alignment, even sunspots visible to the naked eye during atmospheric conditions, all were recorded and interpreted. If celestial harmony faltered, it meant the emperor had lost favor with heaven. Rebellions were justified by astronomical anomalies. Think about what this means. These were not primitive people afraid of the dark. These were brilliant minds who built cities, created writing, developed mathematics. And they all, independently, arrived at the same conclusion: the sky matters. What happens up there affects what happens down here. They watched meteor showers and saw the tears of gods. They saw eclipses and felt the cosmic order temporarily undone, a reminder that even the most reliable patterns could be broken. They noticed that certain planetary alignments seemed to accompany abundant harvests, while others preceded droughts. Whether the correlation was causal or coincidental didn't matter to them as much as the pattern itself, because humans are pattern-seeking creatures. We find rhythms and we align ourselves to them. And the sky offered the most reliable rhythms available: day and night, the phases of the moon, the annual return of constellations. But here's where it gets interesting. What if, in their attention to these patterns, ancient peoples were responding to something real? Not divine intervention exactly, but subtle cosmic influences we're only beginning to understand. What if their mythology was an attempt to describe phenomena that science is now rediscovering through different language? Gravitational forces, magnetic fields, solar radiation. These are the new vocabulary for what the ancients might have been sensing all along. And so history began its long conversation with the heavens, a dialogue written in eclipses and conjunctions. In the rise and fall of empires timed to celestial clocks that no one fully understood but everyone could see. The question is, were they watching the sky, or was the sky watching them back? There are moments in history when the line between earth and heaven seems to dissolve, moments when a celestial event occurs at precisely the same instant as a turning point in human affairs, so perfectly timed that even the most skeptical mind pauses and wonders. Let us visit a few of those moments. It is the year 1066, and England stands on the edge of conquest. King Harold has just defeated one invasion from the north when word comes of another threat. William of Normandy is gathering ships across the channel. The English army is exhausted. The kingdom is vulnerable, and then the sky tears open. A comet appears, brilliant, terrifying, trailing a tail that stretches across the heavens like a sword. It hangs there night after night, visible even in daylight. The people are paralyzed with fear. Comets have always been omens, but never of good things. They announce disasters, deaths, the end of dynasties. The Bayeux Tapestry, woven shortly after to commemorate what came next, shows this comet explicitly, stitched in thread above a scene of terrified Englishmen pointing skyward. Within months, Harold is dead at the Battle of Hastings. William becomes king. The entire trajectory of English history its language, its culture, its eventual global empire, pivots on that moment. Was the comet a cause or merely a witness? The ancients would not have separated the two. To them, the comet was the announcement of cosmic intention. The battle was simply how that intention manifested in human affairs. Travel back further to the ancient Near East. The Neo-Babylonian Empire is at its height, having conquered Jerusalem and exiled its people. Babylon is the greatest city in the world, its hanging gardens a wonder, its ziggurats touching the sky. But the empire has grown complacent, its kings distracted. Then comes a lunar eclipse, a blood moon. They called it, when Earth's shadow turns the moon deep red. Ancient records describe it clearly. And within a generation, Babylon falls to the Persians. The prophecies recorded in the book of Daniel specifically mention celestial signs accompanying Babylon's doom. Whether those signs were literal or literary, the association was made. The heavens declared the empire's time was ending in Rome. The assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BCE was followed by unusual celestial phenomena. Ancient historians recorded a comet appearing shortly after his death, so bright it was visible for 7 days. The Romans interpreted it as Caesar's soul ascending to join the gods. His adopted son Octavian used that comet in his propaganda, claiming divine favor. That symbolism helped him become Augustus, the first emperor, and transform Rome from republic to empire. Again, celestial event, historical pivot, narrative connection. Skip forward to 1054 CE. In the constellation Taurus, a star suddenly appears where none had been before, so bright it's visible during the day for weeks, outshining Venus. Chinese and Arab astronomers record it meticulously. Today we know it as the supernova that created the Crab Nebula. In Europe, this astronomical event coincided with the Great Schism, the final split between the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches. A rupture that redefined Christianity and shaped a millennium of conflict. Coincidence? Perhaps. But to the faithful of the time, the heavens themselves seemed to be announcing that the unified church had been torn apart. There's something deeply human in these connections. We want events to mean something. We want the universe to be coherent, with patterns we can discern. And so when the sky does something dramatic, something rare and overwhelming, at the same moment that human society undergoes upheaval, we naturally link them. But what if there's more to it than narrative impulse? Modern research suggests that solar activity, sunspots, solar flares, geomagnetic storms, can affect human behavior in subtle ways. Studies have found correlations between geomagnetic disturbances and increased hospital admissions, changes in mood, even upticks in conflict. The mechanism isn't fully understood, but the statistical patterns are intriguing. Could ancient peoples have been sensitive to these influences in ways we've forgotten? Living closer to natural rhythms, without the insulation of modern technology, might they have felt cosmic weather the way we feel earthly weather? The Roman historian Plutarch wrote that comets were accompanied by tempests and winds, and disorders in the atmosphere, which caused drought and famine and pestilence. Was he describing atmospheric effects of cometary passages, or solar activity associated with meteor showers? We'll never know exactly what he was observing, but his conviction that heaven and earth were linked was absolute. And so empires rose and fell beneath skies that blazed with omens. Rulers consulted astrologers before making decisions. Battles were scheduled according to celestial favor. Treaties were signed during auspicious planetary alignments. Whether the stars truly controlled these outcomes, or whether human belief in the stars created self-fulfilling prophecies, the result was the same. History and heaven moved together, each reflecting the other in an endless dance of cause and effect, belief and reality. And perhaps that's the deepest truth, that our attention to the cosmos shapes us as surely as any gravitational pull. The question then becomes, what patterns are we following now? In our modern age, when we rarely look up at all, time, we think, moves in a straight line. Past behind us, future ahead, the present a single point traveling steadily forward. But what if time moves in circles too? What if history, like the planets, follows orbits, returning to familiar positions, replaying themes, cycling through patterns that echo across centuries? This is the ancient idea of the great year, a cosmic cycle in which the entire celestial sphere returns to its starting position. The precession of the equinoxes, caused by Earth's slow wobble on its axis, takes approximately 26,000 years to complete. Ancient cultures knew about this. The Egyptians tracked it. The Greeks calculated it. The Maya encoded it. And many believe that this slow cosmic will govern the ages of humanity, that civilizations rise and fall in rhythm with the turning of the heavens. In Greek tradition, history moved through ages: gold, silver, bronze, iron, each age progressively darker, more troubled, until eventually the cycle would complete and begin again. This wasn't linear progress, it was cyclical destiny, written in the stars. In Hindu cosmology, time operates in vast cycles called yugas, ages lasting hundreds of thousands of years, during which consciousness itself rises and falls. We are currently in the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness and discord, but it will pass, as all things pass, and the cycle will begin anew. These are not just mythological stories. They represent a fundamentally different understanding of time, one that mirrors astronomical reality more closely than our modern linear model. Consider planetary conjunctions. When Jupiter and Saturn align in the sky, astrologers throughout history have called it significant. These conjunctions happen roughly every 20 years. But the truly rare great conjunctions, where they align in the same zodiacal sign, occur in approximately 200-year cycles. And even rarer are the shifts from one element to another, from earth signs to air signs. For example, December 2020 saw such a shift. Jupiter and Saturn conjoined in Aquarius, moving the cycle from Earth to air for the first time in 2 centuries. Astrologers predicted a fundamental change in collective focus, from material concerns to intellectual, technological, and social ones. And whether you believe in astrology or not, you have to admit, the timing was striking. A global pandemic forcing humanity into digital connection, social movements amplified through technology, the rise of artificial intelligence and space exploration. The entire planet suddenly, urgently concerned with collective systems. Exactly the themes associated with air signs. Coincidence? Perhaps. But the pattern repeats. The last time this conjunction shifted into air signs was in the early 1200s, a period that saw the rise of universities, the spread of new philosophies, increased trade and communication across cultures. The time before that corresponded with the classical Greek period, democracy, philosophy, the birth of Western intellectual tradition. It's as if something in the cosmic arrangement allows or encourages certain types of human development during specific windows. Solar cycles follow an 11-year pattern, periods of high and low sunspot activity. During solar maximum, the sun is turbulent, flaring, energetic. During solar minimum, it quiets. And some researchers have found intriguing correlations between solar cycles and historical events. Periods of low solar activity, like the Maunder minimum from 1645 to 1715, corresponded with the Little Ice Age and significant social upheaval in Europe. The mechanism could be climatic. Solar activity affects Earth's temperature and weather patterns, which in turn affects harvests, economies, and political stability. But there may also be more direct effects, electromagnetic influences on human cognition and behavior that we're only beginning to measure. Then there are the longer cycles, the 2160-year astronomical ages marked by which constellation the sun rises in during the spring equinox. The age of Pisces, lasting roughly from the birth of Christ until now, was symbolized by the fish and became the age of Christianity, whose symbol was the fish. Before that, the age of Aries, the ram, saw the rise of shepherd cultures and ram symbolism in religions, the Hebrew shofar, the golden calf that Moses condemned. Are these patterns real, or are we projecting meaning onto neutral celestial mechanics? Perhaps both. Perhaps the universe provides the rhythm, and humanity improvises the melody. The beat is cosmic, but the song is ours. What seems undeniable is that humans have always sensed these rhythms and tried to align themselves accordingly. Agricultural calendars following solar and lunar cycles, religious festivals timed to equinoxes and solstices, economic markets that seem to pulse with mysterious periodicity. Even now, in our supposedly rational age, we feel it. the sense that time moves in tides, that history has seasons, that certain years feel charged with possibility while others feel stagnant. That cultural moods shift in ways we can feel but rarely explain, and perhaps that's because we are, after all, part of the cosmos, not observers standing outside it, but participants moving within it, subject to forces both visible and invisible. The clockwork turns, the gears engage, and humanity, whether conscious of it or not, moves to a rhythm played on instruments too vast to see. The question is, if we became aware of this rhythm, could we learn to dance with it more gracefully? There is an ocean you cannot see, but which surrounds you completely. It rises and falls. It ebbs and flows. It responds to forces millions of miles away, tugging on your body, your mind, your mood in ways so subtle you've learned to ignore them. This ocean is made of gravity, magnetism, and particles racing through space at incomprehensible speeds, and it may be shaping history more than we realize. Let's start with something we can measure: Earth's magnetic field. Generated by the churning of molten iron deep in the planet's core, this invisible shield protects us from solar radiation and cosmic rays. It also fluctuates, sometimes weakening, sometimes strengthening, occasionally even flipping polarity entirely. Scientists now know that many animals can sense this field. Birds use it to navigate during migration. Sharks and rays detect it to hunt. Even some bacteria orient themselves magnetically. But what about humans? Studies have shown that human brainwaves, particularly alpha rhythms associated with relaxation and creativity, sometimes synchronize with extremely low-frequency electromagnetic waves in Earth's atmosphere. These are called Schumann resonances, the natural electromagnetic frequencies produced by lightning strikes circling the globe, creating a kind of planetary hum at about 7.83 Hz. That frequency is remarkably close to the frequency of certain brainwave states. And some researchers have proposed that our collective consciousness might literally resonate with this planetary field, that ideas, moods, and even social movements might propagate through electromagnetic channels we're unaware of. It sounds like science fiction. But consider this. Studies have found correlations between geomagnetic disturbances caused by solar storms and increased hospital admissions for mental health crises, changes in reaction times, and even the creativity of artistic geniuses. Tchaikovsky, it's been noted, experienced periods of intense creative output that aligned with peaks in solar activity. Is it possible that solar flares, massive explosions of energy from the sun, send cascades of particles that interact with Earth's magnetic field in ways that affect human cognition? The mechanism would be subtle, not mind control, but rather a gentle influence on neurological firing patterns. Like changing the lighting in a room changes mood without dictating thought. And if such influences exist on an individual level, what about collectively? History is filled with periods when new ideas suddenly emerge simultaneously in multiple places, as if the time had simply come for certain thoughts to be thought. Calculus was invented independently by Newton and Leibniz. Evolution was formulated by Darwin and Wallace at the same time. During the Renaissance, artistic genius erupted across Europe seemingly all at once. We usually explain this as cultural readiness, that societies develop to a point where certain insights become possible. But what if there's also a cosmic component? What if periods of particular solar activity, particular planetary configurations, create conditions where human consciousness becomes more receptive to certain frequencies of thought? Ancient astrologers would have had no trouble with this idea. They believed that planetary aspects, the angular relationships between planets, created fields of influence. A harmonious aspect might facilitate cooperation and creativity. A tense aspect might generate conflict and upheaval. Modern astrology has lost much of its credibility through vague newspaper horoscopes, but at its origin, it was an attempt to map invisible forces, to create a language for influences that were felt but not seen. And physics now tells us that space is not empty. It's filled with fields, gravitational, electromagnetic, quantum. Objects that appear separate are actually connected through these fields, influencing each other in ways that collapse our simple notions of isolated causation. When Jupiter and Saturn aligned in December 2020, for example, their combined gravitational influence on Earth was negligible, far less than the gravitational pull of the moon. But what if gravity isn't the only mechanism? What if the configuration itself, the geometric relationship of massive bodies in space, creates subtle resonances in the ambient field that somehow trickle down into human affairs? This is speculation, yes, but it's speculation grounded in the reality that we are electromagnetic beings living in an electromagnetic universe. Our neurons fire through electrical signals. Our hearts generate measurable magnetic fields. We are not sealed off from the cosmos. We are continuous with it. And so we return to the possibility that history, our collective choices, our wars and peace, our bursts of creativity and periods of stagnation, might be choreographed by forces as invisible and persistent as gravity, not determining our actions, but creating the conditions within which certain actions become more likely. Think of it like music. The cosmos provides the key and tempo. We improvise the notes. Some songs will be joyful, others sorrowful, but all will be played in the same key until the cosmic DJ changes the track. And perhaps, if we listen closely enough, we can hear that music, feel its rhythm, learn to move with it rather than against it, because resistance to invisible forces is exhausting. But alignment? Alignment is effortless, like a leaf floating downstream, borne by currents it cannot see but can trust completely. There is a tension that has existed for as long as humans have. Looked up, a fundamental disagreement about what we're actually seeing. On one side stand the astrologers, mystics, and meaning makers. They look at the sky and see a living book, a language of symbols through which the universe speaks. Every planet is a character, every constellation a story, every alignment a sentence in an ongoing cosmic narrative. On the other side stand the astronomers, physicists, and skeptics. They look at the same sky and see mathematics, gravity, fusion, electromagnetic radiation. To them, the planets are not gods but spheres of rock and gas obeying predictable laws. The patterns we perceive are accidents of perspective, not messages encoded in light. And yet, both groups are looking at the same thing. The split between astrology and astronomy is relatively recent. For most of human history, they were one discipline. Kepler, who discovered the laws of planetary motion, cast horoscopes to earn money. Newton, who formulated universal gravitation, studied alchemy, and believed in hidden cosmic correspondences. The boundary between science and mysticism was far more porous. It was the Enlightenment that drove the wedge, the insistence on empiricism, on reproducible experiments, on stripping away subjective meaning to reveal objective mechanism. And this was enormously productive. It gave us antibiotics, space travel, computers. It extended lifespans and reduced suffering. But in banishing mysticism, we may have also banished something essential, a way of relating to the cosmos that acknowledges mystery, meaning, and connection. Because here's the thing, even the skeptics admit we are made of stars. Every atom in your body except hydrogen was forged in the nuclear furnace of a star that later exploded, scattering its elements into space. Those elements coalesced into new stars, planets, and eventually you. Carl Sagan called us star stuff contemplating the stars, a phrase that sounds mystical but is literally scientifically true. So if we are made of the cosmos, why is it so strange to think the cosmos might still influence us? The skeptic's response is that influence requires mechanism. Gravity? Yes, the moon's gravity creates tides. Solar radiation? Yes, it warms the planet and drives weather. But Jupiter's position relative to Saturn affecting human affairs? There's no known physical force that would transmit such influence. And that's true, based on forces we currently understand. But physics has a history of discovering new forces. Electromagnetism was invisible until we learned to measure it. Quantum entanglement seemed impossible until it was demonstrated. Dark matter and dark energy make up most of the universe. Yet we still don't know what they are. The cosmos is larger, stranger, and more interconnected than any single generation's understanding. And humility requires admitting that ancient wisdom, even if expressed in mythological language, might be pointing towards something real. Consider synchronicity, a concept developed by psychologist Carl Jung and physicist Wolfgang Pauli. They propose that meaningful coincidences are not just random, but reflect a deeper order connecting mind and matter, inner and outer reality. when you think of someone and they call, when you dream of an event that then happens, when symbols appear repeatedly during crucial life transitions. These are not necessarily causal relationships, but acausal ones. They are connected by meaning rather than mechanism. Perhaps the relationship between celestial events and historical moments is similar. Not that planets cause wars, but that planets and wars are both expressions of a deeper pattern, ripples from the same underlying wave. Indigenous cultures around the world have always maintained this view. They see the universe as alive, conscious, interconnected. Everything affects everything else, not through linear causation, but through webs of relationship that Western science is only beginning to model mathematically through chaos theory and systems thinking. And so we arrive at a question that cannot be answered definitively, but must be held. Is the universe mechanical or meaningful? Perhaps the answer is both. Perhaps mechanism is how meaning manifests. The planets move according to gravity, yes, but the elegance of their orbits, the ratios and harmonies they create, the way they return to similar configurations and cycles that span lifetimes. All of this produces patterns that resonate with human experience, and pattern recognition is what minds do. It's how we've survived. The ability to see the pattern of seasons, of animal migrations, of dangerous situations. This is intelligence. And when we see patterns connecting heaven and earth, perhaps we're not being irrational. Perhaps we're using the same faculty that has always helped us navigate reality. The skeptic says, "Show me the mechanism, or I cannot believe." The mystic says, "Open yourself to mystery, and you might perceive connections too subtle for instruments." Both are right. Both are incomplete, and maybe that's okay. Maybe we need both languages, one of mathematics, one of metaphor, to approach the full truth of what it means to be human beings looking up at a cosmos that made us and somehow, impossibly, is looking back. Close your eyes and picture the night sky as our ancestors saw it. Untamed, overwhelming, magnificent. No streetlights dimming the stars. No buildings blocking the horizon. Just the full dome of heaven stretched overhead, so thick with light it looks almost like fog. And in that vastness, patterns emerge. Humans cannot help but find shapes in randomness. A cluster of stars becomes a bear, a hunter, a crown. We connect the dots and tell stories, and those stories become the myths that teach us who we are. But what if those myths are more than just stories? What if the constellations are history written in light, a record of human experience mapped onto the heavens, or perhaps the reverse, celestial truths reflected in human narrative? Consider Orion, the hunter. Visible from nearly everywhere on Earth, it has been recognized across cultures for thousands of years. In Greek myth, Orion was a mighty hunter who boasted he could kill any animal. The goddess Gaia sent a scorpion to humble him, and both were placed in the sky, Orion forever fleeing Scorpius across the heavens. But this is not just a Greek story. In ancient Egypt, Orion was associated with Osiris, god of death and rebirth. The rising of Orion in winter signaled the season of planting, death giving way to new life. In Native American traditions, the three stars of Orion's belt were seen as three hunters chasing a bear. In Hindu mythology, Orion represents Prajapati, the creator. Different cultures, different stories, but the same stars. And often, the themes echo: hunting, pursuit, death and rebirth, creation. As if the constellation itself is radiating an archetypal energy that human minds translate into locally appropriate myths. Or consider the Pleiades, a tight cluster of stars visible to the naked eye as a small, hazy group. Greek myth tells of 7 sisters pursued by Orion, transformed into stars to escape him. Aboriginal Australians also tell of 7 sisters fleeing a lustful pursuer. Japanese culture speaks of Subaru, a gathering of stars representing unity. The Maori of New Zealand called them Matariki, marking the new year. 7 sisters. Pursuit, gathering, renewal. The myths differ in detail but converge in theme, as if the Pleiades themselves carry a message that different cultures hear in their own dialect. This is the power of constellations. They are mirrors. They show us ourselves, and they do so across time, creating continuity between ancient stargazers and modern dreamers who look up and see the same lights, but theirs. Another layer to this, the precession of the equinoxes, Earth's slow wobble means that the background of stars against which the sun rises at the spring equinox gradually shifts. It takes about 2,160 years to move through one zodiacal constellation, and many historians believe these ages correspond to shifts in human consciousness and civilization. The age of Taurus, roughly 400 to 2000 BCE, was marked by the worship of bull gods, Apis in Egypt, the Minotaur in Crete. Agriculture dominated. The plow, pulled by oxen, transformed society. The age of Aries, roughly 2000 BC, 1 CE, saw the rise of ram symbolism, the golden calf, the Hebrew sacrificial lamb, the Roman god Mars. This was an age of warriors, of iron, of empires built through conquest. The age of Pisces, roughly 1 CE, present, brought the fish, symbol of Christianity, which dominated Western history for 2 millennia. Themes of sacrifice, salvation, and duality, two fish swimming in opposite directions, characterized the age. And now, many believe we are entering the age of Aquarius, the water bearer, symbol of knowledge, technology, and collective consciousness. The themes we see emerging, global connectivity, environmental awareness, artificial intelligence, seem to fit. Is this real? Or are we seeing patterns because we want to see them? Perhaps it doesn't matter. Because the stories we tell about the stars shape how we understand ourselves. And how we understand ourselves shapes what we become. The constellations are not just pictures. They are frameworks for meaning. And by aligning human history with celestial cycles, our ancestors were doing something profound. They were connecting the temporary and fleeting, human life, with the eternal and vast, the cosmos. They were saying, you are not separate. Your story is part of a larger story. Your struggles and triumphs echo patterns that play out on scales you cannot imagine. And in that connection, there is comfort. Because if history is written in constellations, then it also means that even in our darkest moments, we are held within a pattern that continues. The stars will still turn. The ages will still change. And humanity, for all its suffering and joy, is part of something that endures. Tonight, when you close your eyes, imagine yourself placed gently among those stars. Imagine that your life, every choice, every moment, is a tiny but essential point of light in a constellation still being drawn, and know that others, thousands of years from now, might look up and see the pattern you helped create and tell stories about it, and feel less alone. And so we return to the question we began with. What if celestial forces controlled history? But perhaps we've been asking it wrong. Perhaps the question isn't whether the stars control us, but whether we and the stars are part of the same unfolding, two expressions of a single cosmic process, both shaping and being shaped, both moving according to patterns too vast to see from any single moment. Lie still for a moment. Feel the earth beneath you, solid, dependable, turning at 1,000 miles per hour though you cannot feel it. You are on a planet spinning through space at 67,000 miles per hour around a star that is itself moving through the galaxy. And the galaxy is moving through the universe. You are in motion, always in motion, part of a dance that never stops. And yet, you feel still. You feel rooted. Because motion, when everything moves together, feels like stillness. Perhaps history is the same way. We feel like we are making choices, and we are. But we are making them within currents so vast and slow that they feel like stillness. We think we are free, and we are. But we are free the way a fish is free in the ocean, able to swim in any direction, but always within water, always subject to tides and currents, always part of a larger system. This is not fatalism. It is not a surrender of agency. It is a recognition of context, that our choices matter, but they matter within a framework we did not create and cannot fully control. Ancient astrologers understood this. They did not say, the stars determine everything. They said, the stars incline, they do not compel. You are born under certain celestial conditions, which create tendencies, potentials, themes. But how you navigate those themes, that is yours. And perhaps that's the deepest gift of this perspective. Not the illusion of total control, but the relief of knowing you are held within something larger. When empires fall, when climate shifts, when pandemics sweep across the globe, these are not random punishments. They are part of cycles, part of a breathing rhythm. Inhale and exhale. creation and dissolution, light and dark. The sun rises every morning, no matter what happened the night before. The moon waxes and wanes, teaching us that even when something seems to disappear, it is only changing phase. It will return, and the stars, those distant fires that our atoms once lived inside, continue to shine, holding patterns in place across billions of years. You are part of that pattern. Not a mistake or an accident, but a necessary thread in a tapestry too large to see from any single vantage point. Let yourself rest in that knowing. Let the weight of having to control everything dissolve. Let history be what it is, a collaboration between human will and cosmic rhythm, both honoring the other, both moving together like dancers who trust the music even when they cannot see the conductor. There is a peace in this, a deep, quiet peace. Because if the stars have been guiding us all along, then we have never been alone, never been lost. Even in the darkest nights, the sky was there, holding the patterns that would guide us forward when we were ready to look up. And even now, as you lie here at the edge of sleep, the universe is still turning, still singing its slow, silent song, still offering its light to anyone willing to lift their gaze and remember that they, too, are made of stars. Rest now. Let your breathing slow to match the rhythm of tides you cannot see, but which move through you anyway. Let your heartbeat synchronize with the pulse of solar winds brushing against the magnetosphere. Let yourself be part of the cosmos, not separate from it. And know that when you wake, the sun will have risen again. The moon will have moved to a new position, and history will have continued its ancient conversation with the heavens, a conversation you are part of. Whether you speak or listen or simply dream beneath the stars, the quiet above and the quiet within are the same quiet. And in that stillness, everything is already whole.